Good. All right, good evening. I would like to call the Hebron Board of Education regular meeting of Thursday, May 22nd, 2025 to order. The time is 6:05 p.m. If we could do a roll call. Amelia, you can start.
Okay, Amelia Chiraki, student representative.
Thank you.
Kim Hills, board member.
Sarah Coppolino, board secretary.
Joe Margaitis, vice chair.
Heather Pettit, chair.
Tom Barrett, superintendent.
Nicole Matthews, board member.
Alicia LeMay, board member.
Caitlin Shallar, business manager.
Don Briere, Director of Educational Services.
Thank you. We have our principals, Ms. Ariana, Mr. Larkin, and then Mr. McKinney, who's director of all things. Okay. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So next on the agenda, we had future problem solvers, but we're actually going to table that until September. They have, they're going to a national event in June, so we'll hear from them a little bit later on. So we'll table that for a further meeting. So we'll move on to the student liaison report. Amelia, if you wouldn't mind.
In fourth grade, fourth graders are loving our current writing unit, graphic novels. They're learning how to develop characters and plot their ideas through book mapping and thumbnailing. In math, we started Unit 9 in our new math curriculum, Illustrative Mathematics. These lessons provide a great spiral review of fourth grade content while extending students' thinking to a deeper level. Fifth graders are taking on the role of historian and investigating the events that led to the Revolutionary War. We are examining a timeline of important events and what eventually led to the independence and birth of a nation. We are also strengthening our reading skills with our fantasy book club unit. Last night, Hebron Elementary School had their spring band concert. The jazz band, fourth grade band, fifth grade band, and wind ensemble showed off and did a great job. The marching band will perform at the Memorial Day Parade once again this Monday. The wind ensemble, made up for the sixth grade band and select fifth graders, will head out on their festival performance field trip. They will perform at Springfield Central High School before heading to Six Flags for the afternoon to celebrate all of their hard work. Good luck to the Corn Army and the Rolling Tomatoes. They will be competing at FPS World Finals at Indiana University June 4th through June 8th. We're so proud that they will be representing Connecticut.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Amelia.
See you in 2 weeks.
I know. Oh, no, she won't, because she'll be
At
at
FPS.
FPS.
Oh, right.
Right,
Oh.
Amelia, you're going to FPS, right?
All right,
So
we'll see. So we'll see you in September.
You can tell us about it. Thank you. The district advancement plan, update the technology plan.
Mr. McKinney's going to do that.
Uh,
He's going to play dual duty tonight.
Okay. I'll move over there.
All right, thank you. So this is a kind of a little more than halfway through update for our technology advancement plan. So we did a 5-year plan and I presented 3 years ago.
We have, sorry.
The plan itself remains mostly the same. It's updated on the website. These are my highlights for it. Dr. Baird, do you want me to put the plan up itself or just the highlights?
I think we just go through this.
Okay. All right. Come on. There we go. So, I won't blame you if you don't remember this slide, though it is exactly the same as it was. There's basically three main goals to the technology plan. And the first one is, staff, student, and classroom devices. That's all about supporting classroom instruction. The second one, all the way on the right, is security. And this encompasses physical, building security, and it encompasses data security as well. And then the one in the middle, the infrastructure, is sort of the behind-the-scenes portion that connects the two. And ideally makes everything run pretty seamlessly in the background. With infrastructure, if you're not thinking about it, if you as an end user are not thinking about it, that's a good thing. And this is one of, I assume, many, many examples of kind of how they overlap, those three different buckets that we've got at the moment. All right. So basically, I just want to talk about the highlights and maybe a little bit of lowlights, but mostly highlights for the three buckets. We've changed a bit from our original plan. When I presented this a few years ago, we were one-to-one, top to bottom, and we've actually changed that a little bit. Kindergarten has gone to stations instead of one-to-one. They're not using the iPads as much as they were when this plan was put together originally in 2022. And as time goes on, that's kind of to be expected. You're looking further and further and further into the future. So probably if I do a presentation in 2 years about this, we'll have even a little bit more variation from where we thought we'd be. Chromebooks, we are still one-to-one. Students in grade 3 basically get a new Chromebook when they come in. We've always just tried to have that Chromebook follow the student all the way to 6th grade. We do not, the Chromebooks stay here in the school. We don't do insurance with them. It's not the same kind of break-fix problems that other districts see where they're carried in, backpacks home, goodness knows my own children have Chromebooks at home, so I've seen the abuse they take. But we don't see that with the way we use them here. Where iPads, we're using one-to-one in 1st grade. Like I said, kindergarten's kind of got stations. They've got like 6 or 7 in a classroom that they can pull out. When we originally wrote it also, the library media centers had iPads as well. For Hebron, this was because, they actually have almost no iPads at Hebron. For Gilead, it was more based around like licensing with apps. If we bought 20 licenses for an app for the media center, then if kids brought their iPads from 1st grade, those apps weren't on it. But as the time goes on, we've kind of worked through those issues, and now the library, basically the students bring their devices down to library if they need them, and if they don't bring them. A couple other updates is we are actually ahead of schedule with our whiteboard. We've got those new ViewSonic boards, which you probably see in this building. And they're starting to go into Hebron right now. This building, Gilead Hill, is just about complete. A couple special classrooms, a couple other spots don't have them yet, but we've already started bringing them to Hebron this winter. We picked the rooms with the most need, which was basically based on age or size of the room. But we are ahead of schedule on our whiteboard transition. Chromebooks, from when I wrote the plan, they used to be designed to last 5 years. Now they're designed to last 10. But we just kind of find with the wear and tear, you know, kids use them 180 days a year. Even though they're not going home, they still do get used. We're still finding 5 years is probably the most they can really go for us. Oh, and I already kind of stepped on those other two earlier. One other note just about the new boards is just that they are fantastic for us. Like, they're a lot brighter, easier to see for staff and students, and they take up a lot less space. Less cords, there's no projector. It's just a lot more streamlined setup. It gives the teachers back some space in the classroom that they lost to that whole big smartboard setup. Now, technology infrastructure, this is the one where our firewall upgrade is, and I remember Allie asking me about it last time I presented and talking a little bit about it, and I had no idea the size of this project. We are set to cut over, we were gonna cut over last week. One of the engineers had the flu. We're gonna cut over on Tuesday now. But this project has been something else, just due to the fact that our network, you know, once upon a time, we were connected to RAM and it was one network. And so we still have a little bit of legacy from that, like just the way design decisions were made 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. We're also right now connected with the town on the firewall. Separating from the town has been just tedious. Like, it just, we always knew it would be a lot, but it was actually more than I thought. The good point here is, like, we are gonna be in a great place when this project is done. You know, we've kind of looked at every firewall rule with a fine-tooth comb. I'm feeling pretty good about where we're gonna be. Our firewall is gonna be up in the cloud. It's gonna be a lot more advanced in a professional data center. So this one is gonna be worth all the work, but it was, it was more than I thought it would be at the time. Another kind of thing that was not on the radar, but is that in both buildings, we were able to consolidate our HVAC systems. We had, as you may have heard before, an old system and an older system. We've been able to merge them and combine them into a modern system. And that's an infrastructure for, you know, managing even that air handler you kind of hear in the background right now. But it's also as I transition into security, it's also a security thing as well. One less outdated system to deal with on the network. For security, we have purchased and installed some sort of next generation virus scanners. The difference there is the virus scanner, as you think of it back in the day, it used to just look on your computer for files that were known to be malicious, known to be bad. Nowadays, what they do is they kind of watch your computer and they say, in a way, they're like, this is unusual behavior. Why is this program accessing these files? And it will stop that. It's because just the amount of malware just continues to go up and up and up and up. So it's an insurmountable way to deal with that problem. Our backups also, this may not have been necessarily written out in the plan. The plan had written out sort of our 3-2-1, which is industry standard backup strategy. You have a copy, another copy, and a third copy. We've moved that to the cloud. It's an encrypted spot in the cloud on a professionally hosted data storage. We used to have a server, one of our own servers in East Hartford as the third, but this is a better solution, especially as far as cyber insurance is concerned, just due to the fact that it's immutable storage. So even if I wanted to delete it, I can't. And so that's also true of any sort of malicious actor. let's scroll over. Yep. Just also, on top of consolidating HVAC systems, we also were able to retire an old server as well. So older software running on older servers as well. We've beefed up our email security. Those acronyms are just things you need to do to prove that, you know, the email that is sent is coming from our servers. But nowadays, like Gmail, Microsoft will not accept email that doesn't have these sort of keys behind the scenes. We've enrolled in cyber hygiene through CISA, which is a federal agency whose acronym I forget right now. It's like computer, I'm not even gonna try. But what they're doing is scanning our network for us free of charge because we are a public school, and they will send us a report if they find anything that needs to be fixed on our end. And then the last one is the benchmarks from the CIS computer. Yeah, I'm not gonna try. Another group, another industry group, which just has basically baseline benchmarks that you can install to improve the security of your computers. Like one great thing it does is it enables logging on all your computers. So if you do get breached or hacked, you've got logs to go back to and see how this happened. You obviously hope that doesn't happen. There's other benchmarks to make it harder for that to happen, but it also gives investigators something to look at if the worst was to happen. All right, and that is basically the end of that slideshow, but I'm hopeful someone has some questions.
Thank you so much, Dave. Does anyone have any questions? No. I do around the HVAC system, because I know we've had a lot of talk about HVAC. So what is when you say, I know you like integrate them into one, in this newer of the old, am I right about that? What does it help do?
One thing, so there's an old one, the old one was never online, running like Windows ME, and the new one was running Windows Server 2008. And now that we've consolidated them and put them into a more modern system, one like great thing that it does is it will alert us, right, to issues via email. You know, if something's not working, I'm actually probably getting too many alerts at the moment. That's just how these things work. We have to fine tune it a touch. But you know, if something doesn't work, the heat doesn't kick on, an air handler doesn't fire up, we'll get an alert. But it is also kind of surfaced a lot of issues because we're getting a lot more information now. So if an air handler, like in, you know, the Hebron Elementary gym wasn't working, like that wasn't obvious to anyone. You know, no classroom teachers were saying, I don't feel any air coming through the vent in my room. And, you know, from an air quality standpoint, that's also important. But, you know, something could break and it could be months before somebody like really realized there was something wrong with the old system. They would have to go sit down to the computer, try to command something, notice it wasn't working, like do a little bit of investigation and then come around to it, or it would be picked up during like a preventative maintenance like once a year. So it just lets us get kind of ahead of a lot of this stuff. Or if not ahead, lets us address it a lot quicker.
We were one piece of equipment away from not being able to manage the heat. So it was like a cord that I'm like, find another one on eBay, like let's have a backup. And the answer is like, we've looked and you literally cannot, like you just cannot. So we're like one piece of equipment away from that we drove back and forth between the two schools.
Yeah, I purposely tried to forget that. Yeah, but that is true. It's a 25-year-old system. Many people that worked on it, managed it, kind of retired. Little like copper lines with the phone company now. Yeah. You know, like they're getting away from it just because because their workforce doesn't have a lot of expertise in it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If, it is updated on the website too, if you
Excellent.
want to go through the fine tooth, the full version of it.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Dave.
And I'll just editorialize here. Like, I feel really proud of the way that we have over the years, we being collective, the board and, the district staff have maintained our commitment to budgeting appropriately for our technology continual replacement schedule. You can definitely, there are districts that get behind in that, and then you have got to at least devices, et cetera, and have big budget years for technology. Ours is very steady as we go. It's pretty predictable, our funding levels that we need for things. Not just Chromebooks, but like, firewalls and all the other stuff behind the scenes.
Right. Thank you. All right, next is public comment. I could read it, but there's not a lot of public, so unless any of the principals, I think we're good. We'll move on. Approval of minutes. If I can have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of April 10th, 2025 as presented. Joe, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Oh, okay.
I left.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
Joe
Joe's
abstains.
abstaining.
Yep. Because he had the, all right, motion passes, thank you. All right, Dr. Baird, discussion and possible action regarding the per diem substitute pay rate.
All right, so this is an annual vote of the board around the daily rate for substitute teachers and paraeducators. Or other subs are just paid the first step of the contract for those positions like custodial stuff, that kind of thing. But for teachers and paras, you traditionally have voted on this. So we currently pay, I'm gonna throw some numbers at you, so maybe want to jot these down. We currently pay $113.30. These are daily rates, right? We budgeted for a 3% increase, so that would be $116.70. We did go out and look and just see like what is the going rate across the state, and the going rate is $125 an hour.
A day.
A day, sorry, thank you.
That's,
A day.
sorry, and that was across the whole state?
Yeah, we looked across the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the average?
Yep. With some much higher, there are parts of Connecticut that are paying much higher than that, but it seemed to be like a pretty reasonable rate for this geographic area as well. So we would, it may behoove the board to set the rate on $125 and feel like you're catching up to where we're seeing. We've had years where we've jumped more significantly, where we've, where the rate has just gotten away from our schedule. Some districts do not do it every year. We traditionally have increased it every year, the 3%-ish. What that means is because you budgeted for a 3%, that as the budgeted total hours, if you did $125, it'd be roughly a $4,500 expense that was unbudgeted for. Remember last month we moved forward with, or I emailed you about this, that we moved forward with some technology pre-purchasing. So there's cushion there for this, so I wouldn't worry about it in terms of a budgetary standpoint. So I think it's really more of a question of, do you feel like you want to be more competitive with this rate? If you were to ask me, do I think it's going to get you a lot more subs? No, I don't think it's going to get you a lot more subs. I think people that are subbing here because they live here or they're very close to the area. We have, parents who come in and sub for us or retired staff. So I don't think it necessarily is a great recruitment tool, but I think it can be a good retention tool for our existing subs to see that they're getting that increase. It might mean that they sub more days than not, or if they do sub in a couple of places, if our rate is a little bit higher, they might choose our position versus another. So I think it helps the fill rate in that way.
Do we still have the permanent building subs?
Yes.
Sorry, what was the total cost?
We're estimating, because it's going to depend on how many we did, but based on how many hours we budgeted for subbing for next year, about 4,500.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a huge expense.
Do we have a lot of unfilled absences?
You know, I mean, yes, I think that we can't get enough subs, and there are different times of the year that are just challenging. And this is a prime one, when we have graduations and weddings and,
Yeah.
yeah. The building subs help, we are, we did move to adding a second building sub, really to help with the Connecticut sick leave law. We had some per diem subs that were gonna be capped on how many days they could work, and so we offered them the building sub position because that does offer some benefits. Not medical, but it does offer paid time off. Their rate of pay is higher than the $125, so they just are getting the standard 3% that, is part of the sort of like regular budget cycle. But this one does tend to jump around a little bit, and which is why we have you vote on it.
There's 2 building subs per building.
Yes, we budgeted for 2. We started the year with 1. We moved to a second one at probably like December, January, something like that. And we've been able to fill it, which we haven't always been able to fill when we've had 2. We've had 2 in the past. We haven't always been able to fill it, but this year we were.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I feel like if you're pre-purchasing and you feel like we can offset that cost with the pre-purchasing, then I feel like it's a good move to go to 125 so that we're not playing catch up in a year or 2, which might be tough budgeting cycles for who knows what reason,
Yeah.
or for predictable reasons. So
Right.
$4,500 doesn't seem like a huge expense, especially if we see an offset for it.
Yeah, if you think we can handle that in our upcoming budget.
I do.
Okay.
I think it has a direct impact on students too.
It does,
Every-
yeah. And I do know that a couple area districts do have 125 already, so
Yeah.
that would help us.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. All right. So, and we can have a discussion more if somebody wants, but a motion to set the per diem substitute teacher pay rate to 125 per day.
So moved.
All right, Joe moves.
Second.
All right, Nikki seconds. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion passes.
All right.
There you go, thank you. All right, I'm gonna hand this over to you. Discussion and possible action regarding the educational specifications for the Gilead School HVAC upgrades.
All right, so let me give this a little bit of context, and then happy to take questions on any specifics. But the building committee has been doing work on both the roofing projects and the HVAC projects. We'll talk about roofing later tonight. But we have the educational specifications for the HVAC projects, should we decide to pursue them at a later date. They were produced as part of the work with our consultant. So should we move forward with these projects, then we would need them as part of the grant application. You voting on them tonight really just gives us approved ed specifications if we decide to pursue that later. I think the big question, and we'll talk about this later tonight too, is are we going to continue with the capital approach? And if that's true, then we would be pursuing these projects. We would need to get local funding to be able to do the match for the grant. If we decide to do a comprehensive renovation or a new build, then we wouldn't do these projects. And so I think probably the biggest question that I'm just going to answer preemptively is the long-range plan section of the document. It talks about that we would utilize these the schools for the foreseeable future, essentially. Well, that will only be true if we study and decide we're going to do that, which means we would do these projects. But you're not committing yourself to that with these. So you can vote on them, just so we know we voted on them and we just sort of keep them in sort of archive for when and if we may need them. Or you might decide, you know what, let's not take any action on them and just sort of leave them in draft and just sort of have them, but I feel like that should be your decision to make. I don't think there's any harm in voting on them, and just Caitlin will keep them in her archive should we pursue this grant at a later date. It's one of those things where we've already, well, we didn't, the town paid for them to be produced, and here they are, and so why not just approve them and have them sort of out the ready?
This is a further project or another school? Or
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. Yep. And so you have this on the agenda twice, one for Gilead and one for Hebron. So happy to take any questions.
If we didn't vote on them now, would we have to fund to have them remade?
Not necessarily, and it's possible we might have to have them updated anyway. I think, well, I will say this, the building committee was planning on using these as part of the addendums when they go out to bid on the study on the schools to decide if we should do a comprehensive renovation or a new build. And I think they were feeling like that if they were approved, it just added some weight to them when they're put out as part of that RFP process.
Which would be only part of that project, though.
Correct. Yeah, it would just be, the other study that was already produced would be would be an addendum. I don't know that the roofs would or not, because that work is already like slated to move forward. But these were some of the documents they were gonna include. But no, this would just be a piece of a comprehensive renovation. But it would be part of the analysis of, do you do the capital approach or do you do a renovation? Yes.
So I'll leave it for discussion, because this is a conflict I have because of work, so I can't discuss. So if any of the board wants to discuss or ask Tom a question, you can.
When is that comprehensive study happening?
Great question. I'm very hopeful it's gonna happen, get started in the fall, if not earlier than that. I'd like to see it completed before the end of the next school year, because I think that you should be making decisions in the next year and a half on what you wanna do. And that's gonna be bigger than just this Board of Ed, obviously. There's gonna be a committee that's gonna need to be thinking about what are the next steps, similar to like the roofing committee.
Okay.
Because you're investing a lot of money every year to keep old buildings alive.
And a lot of time and committee work went into creating these
Correct.
already.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a consultant that we are working with who's done these projects across the state, and he's the one who put together these documents. So I don't think it harms anything in doing them. I think it can be helpful. That would be my overall recommendation.
If there's no harm, I guess we should.
Yeah. And the potential to cut down on red tape
Later.
if somebody wanted to move on it, then I feel like why wouldn't we?
Or if it saves any time in the next study, or saves any steps that they would have to redo, or, I mean, might as well.
Right, Alicia and Joe, you're on the building committee, so feel free to.
I feel like you summed it up so nicely.
Okay.
Do you want me to call for the motion?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Can I have a motion to approve the educational specifications for the Gilead Hills School HVAC upgrade project?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
The record show has abstained.
You're doing so lovely. I think we should do this one.
I will do the next one. Can I get a motion to approve the educational specifications for the Hebron Elementary School HVAC upgrade project?
So moved.
Second.
There we go. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Let the record show Heather has abstained.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job, Jen. Do you want to keep going? No.
Chair's report, I think.
Change to say
Okay.
rationale instead of rational, since this whole document.
All right, Chair's report. I just want to first thank the board members that were able to help serve the breakfast from the board, for the staff for Educators and Staff Appreciation Week, and we also want to thank our educators and staff for all of their work that they do throughout the year, their hard work, for all they do for our kiddos in our community, so thank you very much. So a bunch of thank yous tonight, and the other is just a thank you to the community and everyone who came out to vote for the budget. We were very thankful, or I am very thankful that it passed. I'm sure the board is as well. But we just want to thank everyone that came out and used the opportunity just to get their vote out. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
Okay, all right. Bear with me, I've got a little bit more tonight, but we're meeting in 2 weeks, so next time I'll be shorter. So under district advancement plan, we've been talking about the curriculum work that we've been doing with the music and art, as well as STEAM and Spanish departments. That is near completion, so we'll be ready to have those documents updated for the next school year, so that feels like a celebration. Pilot of illustrative math in grade 4, you heard Amelia talk about that tonight, is ongoing. And then the Student Growth and District Advancement Committee met tonight to start doing some work around the district advancement plan updates. We got feedback from staff through the Professional Development and Evaluation Committee, and we're continuing to do updates on that. And we will go over that with the full board in July. So more to come on that. I'm not going to go over the roof and HVAC stuff at this point because I'll wait till we get to the building committee update later. And Dave sort of talked about some of these pieces already tonight, but the installation and modernization of the heating control system is complete. So it started a while ago, but it is now complete. They replaced the water heater here at Gilead because that had begun to fail. I think we talked about that earlier a couple of months ago when we approved the transfer of funds for that. No real updates on the playscapes right now, but the work in the courtyard here has definitely moved along. I think almost all the site work is done now in the courtyard project here. And we're waiting, I think the next step is for the sandbox to be installed and equipment to come in and set up things over the summer. Over April break, we did some repair work to the floors at both schools. We found that every 5 years or so where the different additions are joined, we have buckling in the floor that needs to be addressed kind of on a cycle, so that was this year. And then Dave talked about our firewall work, so that's begun, and it's going to be continuing next week. Didn't make it in my written report, but I think I should let you know some updates around insurance. So the insurance consortium met a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that we have to consider is our stop loss coverage. And what that means is that when you have so we are self-insured, but we pay Anthem to administer our health care, but we are paying the cost of the health care. And we set the premiums that we collect, so that we collect up money to then pay out what is actually incurred. So it's predictive. We have a stop loss coverage refers to a sort of insurance policy that we have in our plan that once individual or their dependent reaches a certain level of claims, we stop paying and this insurance policy kicks in to cover the additional cost. Well, we have one claimant that is very high and has been high and is predicted to stay high. And so that has made our stop loss coverage renewal much more expensive. And so we looked at all available options. No one else, we quoted it out last year and had some quotes for some different carriers, but Anthem was still the best option at that time. This year, we could not get anybody else to even bid on it, and so we really didn't have much of a choice there. And it is going to cost us roughly an additional $500,000 to our total costs for next year. No, we're not going to go back and reset our premiums, for next year or anything like that. And as you know, we've talked about wanting to use down our reserve fund over time, and we did that by taking reductions on premiums, pretty significant reductions for a couple of years. So our reserves can cover this and cover it safely, but it is going to mean that we have less reserves in the future to utilize as we're doing our rate setting for next year. So this is all to say that we are going to use more of our reserves than we had wanted to use next year, which is okay. but we're not gonna have as much reserves built up to be using into the future. And at some point, we're gonna need to replenish reserves, because we have a certain level of reserves we want to maintain, which gives us, good ratings. And, our reserve account generates significant interest, it's several $1 million, like, it's not, none of this is an emergency, but I think it's just information you need to know, and be aware of, because it will definitely drive our insurance renewal for next year. So we will keep our eye on that. So hopefully I explained that well, but happy to take any questions on that. The only other thing I just wanted to mention is that our hiring for certified staff, we focus on non-certified staff when we get closer to the school year. Certified staff is a focus for us right now, has gone extremely well. We have one position left to fill, one teaching position left to fill for next year. So that we are in very good shape for next year right now. Of course, there could be other vacancies that become open later in the summer, but that is where we are right now, which is a good place to be.
Excellent.
Yep. Happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Tom?
Mrs. Schiller, the business manager's report.
Okay. I will be quick tonight.
Okay.
So you see that my first section here around student activity reports, there's a lot of activity happening there towards the end of the year. Some of that is just looking at remaining balances in some account and trying to clean them up for the end of the year. There's other activities happening in the schools and field trips happening, so it's good. That means the students have lots of things to do. So we've been busy spending down that money for the year. Food services, I don't have much to report on the financial side of things. You can see we spent $21,570 in April, and we had $21,317 in revenue. We did not need to do any sort of Board of Ed offsets for that month. The figure that I have provided you several months ago as far as the total Board of Ed offset remains the same, so I don't see any changes there. We did sort of outside of like the fiscal piece of food services, every 3 years we're required to participate in to do a triennial assessment of our wellness policies and practices. So that was work that we did in collaboration with the Wellness Committee at our last meeting in April. Dr. Baird, Lisa Bennett and I went yesterday to a workshop put on by UConn to help us kind of take all of the scores that we had and our rough action plan and really tighten it up so that we have some real deliverables, timelines, and people responsible. So we pulled that work together and we'll be posting it to the website soon. And then that's really going to guide the work of our wellness committee for the upcoming year. So I mention it here under food services because it's a requirement of our funding. So that's good work, and we're excited about moving that forward next year.
And that'll lead to changes to the wellness policy for the policy committee to consider, and then all of you to consider.
No updates on preschool as far as the financial side of things. Things are just moving along as expected. Similarly with grants, we did submit our IDEA grant application for the upcoming fiscal year. I think you had an email regarding this, but we were able to include a additional special education teacher. So we've got some rising caseloads right now. We were able to realize a little bit of additional funding in our IDEA grant funding that we'll have for next year. So that's where we were able to add that extra teacher for next year. So that feels like a really positive step forward for that department as well. The remainder of my report is just like a painstakingly specific account of all of the ins and outs for the remainder of the year. So we're getting down to the wire now. We've got a remaining balance in our general fund of $12,119. And as you know, that pays for our subs and our custodial overtime and property services that kind of pop up out of nowhere. So we definitely feel like we're still ending the year at zero. So in order to get there, I've got a request for some transfers for you. So the final enclosure has my transfer request. And you can see it's mostly very small dollar amounts here and there. The top 4 or 5 lines are all salary lines, some homebound tutoring funding that we keep in case it's needed for special education, which we didn't need, some unfilled paraeducator vacancies. Those are some areas where we had funding available. We also, a couple of months ago, moved a lot of funding into property services because we were just kind of using it up every month, all the money that we had put in there. So we swung a lot of money into property services, and then things seem to sort of settle down in facilities a little bit. So we're trying to move some of that money out now because we don't think we'll be using that anymore. So those are the 2 big places where we've got money that we think is excess of what we need for the year. And then towards the bottom, you see the one large figure on this report is the $30,000 for technology hardware. You probably are aware that costs of just about everything are rising, technology specifically. So in order to doing some of this pre-purchasing will basically allow us to just do what we planned to do for next year. This will help offset the, the increased prices that we were being quoted. So these are all the transfers that I've got for you to decide to vote on today.
Thank you. All right, so transfers, okay, so can I have a motion to approve the line item transfers as presented?
So
All right, Joe, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Nikki, second. All right, any discussion or any questions for Caitlin? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, committee updates, policy committee, we haven't met, but we will be meeting at least once, maybe twice. Dr. Britt mentioned the wellness policy, and there's also a few other policies we need to update. So we will schedule those meetings and put it out to everyone.
Maybe, honestly, maybe even September or October. To like get started on it. 'Cause-
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, the summer's hard, but
Yeah.
first
no.
thing in the fall.
Yep.
Resource Management Committee, hasn't met. Student Growth and District Advancement Committee, Nikki.
Met tonight. Dr. Barrett kind of already touched on that in his report, so I don't know if there's anything else we need to add to that.
Good discussion.
Yeah. Communications and Community Engagement Committee hasn't met.
Did not meet.
Negotiations Committee,
Tentative agreement with UPSU.
okay, I wasn't sure. Do we have a tentative agreement with UPSU? Waiting for
Yeah, so
info.
we're waiting to find out when they're gonna vote. I did send out like a hold on your calendars for 5 o'clock for right before the next board meeting.
June
So
5th.
if people are able to come early, so we could review the contract, that'd be great. So just let me know if you're not able to do that, and then we'll look at something different.
Do we have a date from them yet?
No, I'm working on it, but
Okay.
what they've told me is that they should be able to vote on it before our meeting on June 5th, so that we can be voting on the contract that night, which is
Okay.
why we would review it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe or Alicia or Dr. Baird or Caitlin, Building Committee?
The last meeting, I was at a school event, so I feel like I was not able to take notes, so I don't know if you are able to update.
Sure. So kind of 2 different meetings were happening. So we kind of talked about HVAC already tonight, so let me finish with that, even though it was like the second of the meetings. Basically, the work is done, and what that committee has said is, well, we're not gonna pursue these projects if we're gonna do a comprehensive renovation or a new build, so we really need to answer that question to know what to do next. And so that committee is now done meeting. Maybe they'll meet one more time to approve any other expenses perhaps, but they're just not gonna meet until there's anything to meet about. Any questions about that? Okay, so the roofing committee, we have two big projects going on, kind of at the same time. So for Hebron L, they really were talking about finalizing the contract with it's Greenwood Industries out of Glastonbury. They came highly recommended to do that roofing project. They were also the lowest bidder as well, and came in, I would say, significantly under what was budgeted for that project. So unless there are big overages, which can happen, that's good news. So, and at this point, the Board of Selectmen have approved that contract. I feel 99% sure of that. So we talked about that and just sort of the schedule for that. They'll start work the week after we're out. We're out on a Thursday. They'll start the next Monday. They'll probably be staging some things ahead of time, but that work continues pretty quickly. I think we communicated with them today around like shingle colors and things like that. So that project continues. Any questions about that project? All right, so the project here at Gilead has become very interesting. So it's bigger than just a roof. It's also asbestos and fireproofing, code stuff. Like it's a big project, which is part of why we pushed it out a year. We have the funding for the entire project. We went back to the state to inquire around some logistics around the fact that there's sort of three things happening. There was a meeting today. Caitlin attended that meeting, briefed me on it, and we got lots of emails about it afterwards. But essentially the state is going to require it to be two separate projects. So it will be a roofing project and a code fix project, I'll call it, which is the asbestos and the fireproofing pieces. There are logistical concerns around that. One, the funding was approved all as one project, so there needs to be a separation of the funding. The code project has to be submitted before June 30th, so there's time's a ticking on that. There are extra documents you need for that, with like the health authority and the fire code person.
Yes.
So there's some stuff going on with that needs to be done, along with the funding issue with the town. So that may require another special town meeting to be able to split the money into the two different projects. Donna and Andy and Mal are working on that part. But it's an aggressive timeline, and there'll be additional, remember you approved educational specifications for our roofing project. So those educational specifications are fine, but we'll need another set now for the other grant. So whether those are done by June 5th is an open question. We've asked for them to be pushed quickly, but the building committee doesn't meet until after that. So we'll have to see if that can get done. If not, we'll probably call a special meeting at some point, maybe just even do it on Zoom, or have people call in if you can't be there in person. It would probably be a 5-minute meeting, but we may be asking you to be approving some things for that project. Even though it's not till summer 26, we got to get at least that a code grant in by June 30th. So anyway, is that a pretty good summary?
No, you're summarizing it well. I'm just
I know, try not to make any eye contact.
I know, that's why I look at Caitlin.
So anyway, a lot going on with that. And we want to rush and get it in, but we also don't want to rush and do it wrong. So we're trying to be really careful about it. Any questions? There's a lot going on in facilities, which we talked about as part of the student growth plan, district advancement plan rather.
I think you say that every month.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
There's a lot going on with facilities. Yeah.
One day we won't say that.
What day will that be?
I don't know. Maybe
2040.
5 years from now, 10.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
PTA liaison, Ally could be with us tonight. School readiness liaison, Alicia.
We met on May 8th. Dr. Briere, I will do my best, but I feel like you might need to jump in here. Most of the meeting focused on this transition from our current structure to what is called an LGP, Local Governance Partnership. And so there's conversation about us collaborating with Andover, Lebanon, AHM, and then there's a question about including Marlboro. It sounds like the focus will change a bit to family needs, birth to 5, not just preschool, and build on the work of that the School Readiness Council has already done. We filled all 18 income eligible seats. I'm not sure what else you would add.
That's pretty much it. So going through a major shift with funding at the OEC, so we're thirsty for more updates every week and every day. But the spirit of it is they're consolidating most of their funding sources through grants. We're good for next year, but we're trying to figure out how to poise ourselves in the best possible way to be a strong candidate for what is now going to become a competitive funding stream. It's always been a discretionary grant for us. So what we know today is kind of what we just heard, which is a regional effort is going to be promoted. So we're looking at our neighbors in Andover, Lebanon, interestingly, because they're kind of out on their own and they're currently eligible for school readiness. So we've been encouraged to consider them as a partner. At this point in time, we have to identify an agency to oversee the work, which AHM seems to check a lot of those boxes. Not least of which is because they have a broader focus than us. So one of the priorities of the new funding is a birth to 5 focus, which is a bit beyond our scope even. So we've been in conversations with Tressa over at AHM. And while we've been waiting for months for these updates to come, they're starting to come more rapidly now, and we have our first decision to make by May 30th. So fortunately, when the council met, they voted officially during what is going to be their last meeting as a council to move forward in a regional fashion. So just today, in fact, we received an email that by May 30th, which is coming up by my watch, we need to quickly identify the agency and the fiduciary that's going to help support this work, both of which will not be Hebron Public Schools. So the 3 or so communities that regionalize have to quickly discuss and communicate with one another and town officials what our direction will be. So that's the work in the next week, and that's what we talk about at the council. And as we just mentioned, no longer will we have School Readiness Council updates moving forward. They will now become, I presume, LGP updates as we transition to this new group. The main difference there is we won't be in the driver's seat of that group. We will be one of the cogs in the wheel, one of the partners, to help support what is regional effort of this effort. So a lot more to come. That's as much as we know at this point, and we'll wait and see.
We'll change the name from it next month.
Right, exactly.
I'm very concerned about this funding.
Right, well, what would happen in regard to applications? Like, are you saying that they plan to apply as a regional application?
Correct, yeah, so the agency, in this case, whoever we identify, I don't want to foreshadow who we identify, but the agency would apply on behalf of the communities, plural, that are part of that regional effort. However, we don't know yet what our projected funding levels are, but we've been told that our funding levels should be at least preserved, if not expanded, based on our eligibility status, which means, let's just take those examples, Andover, Hebron, Lebanon, we're each expecting to at least maintain our current threshold of 113.4, which is our current school readiness allotment, but we just don't. I share in the concern, we just don't know yet until we know. So
this could be $100,000 hit to the budget for next year.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I'm just like thinking of the future budget already. Is this a bad time to ask if we've heard about any? I know we were asking for a couple additional slots.
Good question. We did just hear mere days ago, and we did not receive any additional seats.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Sorry, does anyone else have any questions? I got a lot of questions.
It's very, yeah, I feel like that this is very concerning, what's happening in school readiness, because I feel like it's happening in the darkness of the night. Like when I talk to other people across the state about it, they're like, oh, like what are you talking about? I mean, this is not on people's radar. So I think if you start seeing large swaths of the state losing funding and saying, okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to like pack up a preschool program, I wonder what will then happen next. So, you know, this might be act one of a 3-act play, I don't know, but very concerned. And it's gonna be, I think, a lot of commotion in the meantime.
So our School Readiness Council voted to do this regional thing, but we don't know if regionally anyone else wants to do that.
We had a pre-meeting, like East Con, our regional center, had hosted all of the districts in our region a few weeks prior to that.
Okay.
So we got to sit with Andover and Lebanon folks. So we had a preliminary conversation. So when we went to our council, we kind of knew how each council in each community was going to be voting. So we kind of went to our council, projected that update to our council members and said, we believe Andover and Lebanon would love to partner with us. All we need to do today is not decide who the partners are, but what we want to do as a council. So that's what we voted on. So we didn't identify who our partners were at the meeting.
Okay.
But I don't think we had awareness of this May 30th date.
We did not.
Definitely
May
not.
8th.
That's a very
Yeah.
upcoming date.
Yeah, almost like maybe other people already knew that that's what was gonna be happening.
Yeah. We heard of that date in today's email. So
Okay.
yeah.
And there's a holiday in there.
We've got it.
Right.
And I might have missed this, but this is all, why is this change happening? From,
Why is it happening? That's a great question. The talking points that we've heard from the OAC are for a couple reasons. Consolidation of funding, they believe, will allow for a more efficient drawdown for the applicants. So the money should flow directly to each program, so they think that will be more efficient. They're also speaking about broadening access and exposure to a variety of different potentially eligible applicants, which makes us a little worried because, you know, if the pool, so for example, when we applied for these extra seats, we heard there are over 200 applicants in the state that were going for these few extra seats. So that's Act 1 of a three-stage act. Their other promoted talking point is it allows for more communities who have previously not been eligible in different types of agencies who have not previously been eligible can now apply, thereby creating a broader swath of potential students across Connecticut who could gain access to this type of early childhood programming. So there's a couple of the talking points that I've heard. Beyond that, I think it makes the state's office a little bit more efficient, I think, maybe a little easier. They talk about expanded funding opportunities, that the pot of money will be broader, but time will tell on that. We worry for our local context because we've been eligible, we've had a really robust program, and we rely on it.
Right.
We don't want to see those seats transfer down the road. So that's what worries us.
And there's a lot going on in early childhood right now because there's that part of the governor's budget proposal was that 300 million sort of endowment, if you will, to like fund early childhood expansion. But there's, the way that would work is it would set up some kind of like an endowment where you're then spending down the interest or whatever. So, and that was all sort of, that 300 million came from interest off of federal COVID funds as it sat in accounts waiting to be spent. So it was sort of like magic money that came from nowhere, if you will. So like you have this 300 million found in the couch cushions, is what it was said. So let's take this money and let's set up this endowment for early childcare, preschool experiences. But there's no real clear details yet on like what the hammered out compromise budget will do with that 300 million. I think it will be for preschool, I think, or in early childcare. I think that will happen, but how, like, but what does that mean? What are the details? How, like, is that a reimbursement to families who qualify? Does that sort of take over our sort of old sliding fee through school readiness? Like, there's no clarity on any of that.
Can private organizations?
No, you have to be a 1031C, so that expands it to that whole audience of potential candidates.
For
For this new LGP
Right.
Okay,
funding.
because you made
yeah.
it sound like it was like accessible to communities.
Meaning like those folks
that-
wouldn't have been accessible previously, like 1031Cs wouldn't have been able to provide applications prior. Private, you still have to, as far as we know, again, a lot of this is preliminary. We're thinking the rigor of NIC accreditation and those types of pieces still would hold, but we're waiting for more to come down the pike.
But this other 300 million, like the funding that would be coming out of that, I don't believe would be like school districts being able to like apply for something like that, but it may be like a reimbursement directly to families for their costs if they qualify. So, but again, it's all, there's no clarity. So the session has to end by June 4th. We meet the next night, so maybe there'll be some clarity.
Yeah.
But honestly, usually it takes like a month before we really get clear from our attorneys and caps, like here's everything that happened in the session and what it means to you. Usually takes a couple months actually to really get the full autopsy.
If they don't go to special session.
Correct. Yes.
And
Let's hope not.
our school readiness grant is the sliding scale and a certain number of fully paid seats.
Our school readiness grant allows for 18, up to 18, for income eligible families, sliding scale seats.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to fill at a minimum 60% of those 18 each year. And this year, if the first time in my tenure in Hebron, we filled all 18,
Okay.
demonstrating a strong need, which we
Yeah.
were hopeful during our application would help.
Yeah.
But
I think when I first came, there was some fear that we may lose school readiness because we were not necessarily getting up to that 60%, or we were close to that 60%.
Yes, yeah.
So that was a concern
yeah,
then. It's no longer a concern.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for that update. Is there any more questions? All right. Wellness committee.
We have not met since we did the analyzing of the WellSat.
Okay, thank you. Old business, I think we covered this, unless you have something to add.
No,
Dr.
I
Beck?
reached out to Andy and Donna and heard back that, he's on vacation, that this is the sort of like next priority. After they get the roof situated, this will be the next thing they're gonna focus on.
Okay. New business, is there anything anyone would like to see on the next agenda for June?
I have something if no one else does.
Huh?
I have something if
Oh,
no one
okay.
else does. I was hoping to suggest that we could have a discussion around the National School Lunch Program and anything that might be changing federally, and how that would impact spending, how that would impact the budget and the discrepancies that we've had to kind of manage, ingredients changes or that were banned or maybe potentially being banned or changed, and then to address allergies and even like health benefits of students and staff. I know that's comprehensive, but that's just kind of what I was thinking. I know that some research, looking into things on both sides has to be done.
So that might be something for the fall. We definitely wouldn't have it for 2 weeks from now. So it might be something we schedule for the fall. We've had food service come in before, a couple
Yeah,
of
we
years
can have
ago.
them come in,
Yeah.
because they would probably be able to better answer, but
Right.
when they did the presentation, they were very good
Mhm.
about like some of those questions, so maybe we can reach out and see
Yeah, that
when
might be
they're
like,
available.
yeah, maybe October,
Put
November.
them on.
And we did have a wellness committee meeting regarding that too. If we had to make changes and it only happened in the fall, would that delay changes or impact?
No, I mean, any changes that come out will get communicated to our director and immediately implemented. So anything that's required, we will do.
Okay.
But I was thinking about, I'm not aware of anything right now. So and we are still waiting on the meal price as well. And so, you'll have some action around setting the meal price at some point. We're it's not happening for 2 weeks from now, I doubt that.
Because they don't work in the
Release
summer,
that tool.
so we'd have to wait till September, but we could do it in September potentially.
Or we could, we'll have to set the meal before then, so we'll do that in July or August.
Would they come in July?
Oh, no, well, I think it's two different things. We have to set the meal price, so we'll have to have an action on that
Yeah.
before the beginning of the school
If we
year.
get the,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, we can look to have them come in, but I just would want them to come in once we have new things from the feds. And so I think we could have them come in as soon as their schedule allows and we have more information. But right now, I'm not aware of anything changing from the federal level.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, so we'll plan on it.
Yeah, and if we get anything, like that usually would come in a memo or something, if we get something like that, we can forward it out to you too. And look to schedule in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, okay, does that work?
Thank you.
And certainly could be September, we just have to see if there's any updates.
Okay. Because there's nothing on the, okay. Money for kids for free lunches anymore, right?
There were some yes, in the governor's proposed budget, there were some, I think free breakfast was included again. I don't know if it was for this upcoming year or the year after. And I don't know if that's surviving the reconciliation process.
Yeah.
There was also a creative bill that I don't think will pass, but I think a committee is going to, or there'll be a study on this bill before they consider maybe the following year. But that was to establish a tax on sports drinks, soda, anything with like added sugar, energy drinks, that kind of thing. That there would be a point of sale tax on those drinks. And the revenue from that would then be used to provide universal free meals for kids.
Oh.
So I don't think it's gonna actually happen this session. I think that it's been converted into a work group to study it. Very interesting idea. So we'll see where that goes.
Okay. Any other new business? Okay. Thank you. Board member comments?
I just would like to say the concert at HES was great last night. Really well done. Nice to see all of the kids participating, and I really appreciate the efforts that made it possible.
Excellent.
I wanted to say thanks to the food services crew and Lisa, who I think it was like 15 dozen eggs
Yeah.
were made the morning of each
That's a
teacher
good point.
appreciation or staff
Yes.
appreciation breakfast. And so the food was delicious and it was appreciated too. And so they put a lot of work into that.
Yes.
And then to the PTA for everything that they did to show how much they value our great teachers.
That's wonderful. They did quiche too. That
Yes.
was new.
Yeah,
It was a hit.
quiche was
Yeah.
a hit.
I was talking to Lisa about that today, actually.
All right. Any other comments at this time? All right. So next would be, so I will add, this is discussion and possible action regarding the employment contract for the superintendent of schools, sort of obviously proposed for executive session. So I would ask for a motion to move into executive session at 7:18 p.m. for the purposes of discussion regarding the employment contract for the superintendent of schools, inviting Dr. Baird in to attend portions of the executive session.
So,
All right. Moves.
Second.
All right, Tim seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we are in executive session. Room Am I on? All right. All right, so I'd like to, we're now back in open session at 8:36 PM. So I'd like to ask for a motion to extend the employment contract of Dr. Tom Baird as superintendent of schools through and including June 30th, 2028, and further that the board chairperson be authorized to finalize and execute the employment contract with Dr. Baird for the period of July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2028, as the Board of Education discussed.
So moved.
Joe.
Second.
Sarah seconds. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion passes unanimously. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Baird, for your wonderful service.
Thank you to everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to adjourn at 8:37
So
PM?
moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All right, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, all right, we are now, I'm sorry, who seconded, Kim?
Sure, yep.
No, or
No,
Sarah?
Nikki.
Nikki,
Nikki.
sorry,
8:37, is that what you said?
8:37, sorry, sorry, Nikki. All right, we are now adjourned.
Tom, I